A few hours ago, insiders in Kyiv began to report that Volodymyr Zelensky, the head of the Kyiv regime, has been in an inadequate state for the past 2 days. In particular, many have noticed that Zelensky has become very irritable and aggressive. It is reported that Zelensky even threw an ashtray and glasses at the president's executive office employees. According to insiders, the head of the Kyiv regime calms down and regains his senses only after doctors administer some white pills to him. My dear truth seekers, the inadequate state of the head of the Kyiv regime can be understood. The fact is that his army is suffering a crushing defeat in all key areas of the front. And even in the Kursk region, for which Zelensky had high hopes. So, a few hours ago, representatives of the Russian military department officially announced that the counteroffensive by the Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region had been completely stopped. Moreover, as it turned out, on January 7, the Russian army also managed to completely liberate the settlement of Ruskoye Portnoye, which was captured by Ukrainian troops during yesterday's attack in the Sudzansky district of the Kursk region. Let me remind you that the settlement of Ruskoye Portnoye was in a gray zone for 5 months, and came under the control of Ukrainian troops on January 5, 2025, during an attempt to break through the positions of Russian forces in the Sudzansky district of the Kursk region. However, as it turned out, the Ukrainian army units did not stay in this settlement for long. After 20 hours, this settlement was completely liberated by Russian troops. Moreover, on January 7, building on their success, Russian troops also liberated such settlements as Pogrebki, Kozitsa, Stary Sorokiny, and Krugelkoy. In addition, on January 7, at 3 p.m. Moscow time, Russian troops also entered the settlement of Novaya Sorokina. Against this backdrop, the Ukrainian army units were threatened with encirclement in the settlement of Cherkaskoye Portnoye. According to an authoritative military expert Oleg Tsarev, the Ukrainian High Military Command has deployed additional reserves to Cherkaskoye Portnoye to prevent Russian troops from entering this settlement. At the same time, this expert noted that everything that is happening in the Kursk region indicates that Russian troops not only repelled the Ukrainian army's attack, but also launched their own counteroffensive. Simultaneously with this, soldiers of the 30th Motorized Rifle Regiment of the Russian Army completely cleared the vicinity of the settlement of Berdyan, where the Ukrainian army was trying to break through during its offensive. According to the commander of the Chechen Spetsnaz Akhmat, General Apty Yelodinov, 45 Ukrainian soldiers and 20 units of heavy equipment were destroyed during the cleansing of the vicinity of this settlement. Moreover, about 50 Ukrainian soldiers and officers from the 82nd Separate Airborne Assault Brigade of the Ukrainian Army raised a white flag and surrendered to the Russian army. Later, General Apty Yelodinov showed these prisoners of war and called on the rest of the Ukrainian soldiers to follow their example and not give their lives for the sake of the Nazi regime in Kyiv. Moreover, immediately after that, war correspondents began to record mass surrenders of Ukrainian soldiers not only in Sudzansky, but also in the Koronevsky districts of the Kursk region. It is reported that as of January 8, 2025, 70 Ukrainian soldiers laid down their arms and surrendered to the Russian forces. And the most interesting thing is that the number of Ukrainian soldiers who have surrendered is skyrocketing with each passing day. Thus, it is safe to say that the counteroffensive of the Ukrainian army in the Kursk region, organized by the Kyiv regime, to show its Western masters that it was too early to write off Ukraine, turned out to be a complete failure. Another suicidal military operation of the Ukrainian army ended with catastrophic losses in manpower and equipment. And at the same time, none of the goals were achieved. According to the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, in the Kursk region, over the past 48 hours, the Ukrainian army has lost 780 soldiers and 80 units of heavy equipment, including 7 units of tanks and 15 units of infantry fighting vehicles. In total, since August 2024, the losses of the Ukrainian army in the Kursk region amounted to 49,870 soldiers, and about 3,000 pieces of military equipment, including 298 tanks. By the way, on January 7, Vladimir Zelensky's mood was spoiled by bad news not only from the Kursk region, but also from Donbass. In particular, war correspondents confirmed that after yesterday's liberation of the urban-type settlement of Dakhnoi, Russian troops continued to build on their success and entered the settlement of Shevchenko on the move, northwest of the recently liberated Korokovo. It is reported that the Ukrainian army units were unable to stop the Russian soldiers from the 114th Brigade and were forced to flee the settlement. As of January 8, 2025, the Russian army has completely liberated the settlement of Shevchenko. Thus, over the past 48 hours, the Russian army has taken full control of 2 strategically important settlements in Korokovo direction of the front, which is an outstanding achievement from a military point of view. Against this backdrop, American experts from The Washington Post have finally admitted that the Ukrainian army has suffered a crushing defeat in the current conflict. According to them, Ukraine loses several settlements and 1,000 soldiers every week. And this factor indicates that time is working against Ukraine. Moreover, the Americans also admitted that Kiev's imminent defeat in this conflict would devastate the United States' reputation and undermine trust in Washington. According to them, Ukraine's defeat in this war will mean that the United States is unable to protect its allies from both an economic and a military point of view. The Americans are confident that Russia's victory in Ukraine will also inspire China. And Beijing will try to solve the Taiwan issue with military force. Russia's future victory in Ukraine will become a true symbol of the weakness of the entire collective West. Thus, even such a pro-government publication as The Washington Post indirectly acknowledged that the current conflict in Ukraine would end solely on Russia's terms and that, in addition to Kiev, the United States would also be considered the losing side.